Sometimes you read a headline that is so bad you have to pause and think about it for a moment. The one I read,
a lot these days.
Yeah. How's this? Jason Isaacs regrets bringing up Mikey Madison's vulva.
What?
There's just way too many unrelated nouns in that headline. And look, if you're wondering why anyone is talking about the genitals of celebrities, Jason Isaacs, who is the actor who plays the character of Tim in The White Lotus, he's the dad of the sort of southern family with the 3 grown-up kids. He wants you to know that he didn't start this. So here's what happened. There was a scene in the show a couple of weeks ago where his character is jacked up on his wife's pills and he's a bit out of it. He comes down for breakfast in the villa where all his family are gathered, and he is sitting on a chair and he sort of leans back at one point and his bathrobe falls open and you see his full situation. And his family are like, oh, Dad, put it away. And he leaves. And, of course, the internet immediately wanted to know whether it was a prosthetic or not. And so that conversation then spilled into the press circuit where all the cast are doing interviews, and he started getting asked about it in interviews. Here is what happened when he was on an American morning show with Gayle King.
Was that you or was that a prosthetic?
Well, because we were debating it.
Because we were debating.
A lot of people are debating it. It's all over the internet. And it's interesting because
You didn't answer the question.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because the best actress this year was Mikey Madison at the Oscars, and I don't see anybody discussing her vulva, which was on television all the time. No, I'm not talking about Swedish cars, you know? So I think it's interesting that there's a double standard for men, that when women are naked, Margaret Qualley as well in The Substance, nobody would dream of talking to her about her genitalia or her nipples or any of those things. And so it's odd that there's a double standard when it comes to discussing.
But we so rarely get
It's a bit of a dodge.
Yeah,
it is a dodge because I don't think that people really want to know how the sausage is made.
I kind of do.
One.
I kind of do.
Amelia, are you outraged by this double standard?
I've been really railing against this for a long time, that we don't talk about women's genitalia enough in this culture.
And their bodies in general. Like, was that a body double? Were those really your boobs? Those things get asked all the time.
He must have missed it because I know for a fact, because I heard her talking about it in an interview, that Margaret Qualley's boobs and bum were prosthetic and CGI, a combination of the two. So it's just not true. Also, I watched Eora on the weekend, didn't see Mikey Madison's vulva.
This is why it was a strange anecdote to pull out, because you can tell from his delivery when a celebrity goes on a talk show, they've rehearsed what they're going to say. So he knows he's going to be asked about the prosthetic penis. He's decided that's quite funny, make the Volvo joke hilarious. Like, it doesn't really land, but also anyone could have told him exactly what you just told him, Mia, that like, yes, they do ask women about their prosthetic breasts and bums all the time.
And
Jason?
Also men who lean into it, like I'm thinking of Ewan McGregor, for instance. He's famously fond of showing him
Fassbender.
Yeah, or Fassbender. And I think it behooves them to lean into the double standard and say, we're trying to rectify something here.
I think I read it differently. Like, he's a serious actor, serious actor. And, there is a prosthetic dong in every season of The White Lotus.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a fun fact that I'm happy to bring to the show. But I think he genuinely is jack of it in the same way that I'm sure women...
Sorry, what was the phrase you used there?
Jack of it. I'm sure he's in the same way that women are jack of it. But I guess he doesn't see the irony.
No. And I was interested in I looked up Game of Thrones and the stats on nudity in that, because that was obviously quite famous for its nudity. Turns out the final tally was 70 breast appearances. So that's 70 pairs of breasts, not 30.
So it's 140 boobs. Yeah.
Yeah. Good maths. Yeah. And 4 penises.
It's boob maths.
But a quarter of those penis appearances was a character checking for genital warts. So we'll knock it down to 3.
Game of Thrones.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that there was, of course, backlash to his backlash, because this is the Zeitgeist news cycle. And he's walking back some of the comments that he made. He clarified in another interview. He said, I used the phrase double standard which I didn't mean at all. There is a different double standard. Women have been monstrously exploited and men haven't. He's listened to
a notes app apology.
Yeah, this isn't talking points from his publicist. He said, it came out wrong and I was tired. I'd done so many interviews. I absolutely should not have mentioned those two actresses whom I respect enormously. He then tried to clarify his point further by saying, I wasn't trying to say that men have had a harder time than women. That would be absurd. Women have had a monstrous time on camera forever, and I hope to God that is changing.
Not to put too fine a point on it, Jason.
Bless his heart, honestly. I want to know, though, Mia, you know how in this world now where we've obviously, and for very good reason, got much better, it sounds like, at managing nudity and sex scenes in Hollywood, right? So we've got intimacy coordinators now. Obviously, the more famous you become, the more you can say, no, I won't show this, I won't show that, I'll show this, show that. But can you also say, I also won't talk about it? Do you think that Jason Isaacs this snafu could have been avoided?
You can't really. Two things on that. First of all, there was another blip in the news cycle about intimacy coordinators, because in the Gwyneth Paltrow interview that we spoke about last week, she talked about how she's just filmed this new movie with Timothée Chalamet where she's the older woman to his younger man and they have lots of sex scenes. And she said, and there was someone on the set called an intimacy coordinator who I didn't even know was a thing. And I'm just like, that's a bit disingenuous because come on, I know it's a thing and I don't work in Hollywood. And also, she was part of the whole Me Too movement when she spoke out about Harvey Weinstein and the proliferation of intimacy coordinators, now they're just standard on any movie set, has been in response to that. And they're a way to protect actors, but mostly actresses, from being exploited. So there's this idea that she was trying to do a bit of a flex by saying, I'm old school, I'm just from the time when you just got into bed naked and the director said action and you went for it. So this idea of, oh, if you're a cool girl, you can raw dog your sex scenes and you don't need an intimacy coordinator, rankled with some people.
But it parallels with, do you recall in the text between Blake Lively and
Justin Baldoni, he texts her before filming starts and says, let's set up a meeting for you with the intimacy coordinator. And she also says, I don't need to meet with the intimacy coordinator. I'm sure it's fine. So I think women still face this cool girl pressure to say, I don't need this sort of
I don't think it's cool girl pressure. I think it's an expression of power, right? Because what Gwyneth said in that interview is she said, if I was starting out, it would be different. So Gwyneth Paltrow isn't worried about being exploited on a movie set with Timothée Chalamet or anyone else because she's probably the most powerful person in the room, right? Blake Lively maybe should have been worried the way that all ended up, but obviously didn't feel like she needed to be worried. The intimacy coordinators are there very much, aren't they, to protect people from being pressured into things they don't want to do, making sure that people aren't being harassed or exploited.
Also to protect the producers from legal action.
Yes, but I don't think it's so much of a cool girl flex as it is a thing of like, if I'm powerful enough, I don't need that.
That's a really good point. That's a good point. What's also interesting, just back to Jason Isaacs and the prosthetic penis for a second, the other thing that strikes me about this, Mike White is great at getting extraordinary actors, like Oscar-winning actors, really proper capital A actors in his shows. Everybody wants to work with him. But where there's a little bit of a clash of cultures is that these are not actors who are used to having to answer those kinds of questions. And yet White Lotus is very much a zeitgeist show, and Mike White knows exactly what he's doing by putting in the prosthetic penis because he knows, because when you have a show that drops week by week, you need talking points in every episode that the internet then does 1,000 think pieces about and gets buzz going and people make TikToks about. So it's kind of a clash of cultures where this would be the first time he would be asked about something so undignified as his wang.
And that's a great point because White Lotus is an HBO show, meaning it's not on a streaming service. It started as a TV show that does drop every week. And so that need to create the conversation points is much more intense for that than it is for a Netflix show, which drops all at once.
Drops all at once.
He's dropping Easter eggs or Easter peen.
Easter peen. And just in case you were wondering, it was prosthetic, even though he did not confirm or deny. The rest of the cast were like, yeah, we were throwing it around on set. It was funny.
Interesting.